Hey everybody, how's it going? Um, Wanted to do something a little bit different for my YouTube channel. I wanted to put out something that was encouraging, I guess. Um, I know how it is with some makers and such that you go through certain phases, or at least let me put it this way, I go through certain phases where I wish I had the coolest toys, or I wish I had this, or I wish I had that. Um, you know, one of the things that I have been learning and have learned as well is that most of the time it's not about the fancy tools, it's not about the fancy toys. If you really want to look at the nitty gritty of it all, we're in great company as makers being part of the Star Wars Builders group, because we're wanting to recreate something that we love, and in recreating what we love, we can always go back to how the original Star Wars room builders did it. They didn't have all the fancy tools like the 3D printers or the laser cutters, and they may not even have had the CNC routers, or maybe like they may not even have had a table saw. I'm not exactly sure, but most of them just used whatever they had available. And so I want to share with you guys a little something that I had learned back when I went into trade school for fine woodworking and cabinet making. Now, again, we're all a bunch of nerds, obviously, and even if you don't build Star Wars stuff, this can still apply. Is my mentor, my teacher? He ended up being my mentor because he actually took me on as an apprentice in woodworking. And one of the things that he taught, and this is going to be in two phases. So one of the things that he taught was called the rule of the tool. Now, what the rule of the tool means is that if you don't, in order to properly understand how a specific tool works, you trace it backwards as far as like what was the previous iteration of it. So, for example, we'll use a table saw. Table saw, if you want to go ahead and work backwards on it, all the way back, would be before the table saw, we would have had the circular saw. Before the circular saw, we would have had a hand saw. Before the hand saw, we would have had scissors. Before scissors, we had a knife. Now, you may think, well, how exactly can that apply to me? This is the second phase of it. And again, he was a nerd of his own. He did this thing called the matrix. Now, in the matrix, what we would do is that it's set up like a grid. On the top portion would be your tools. On the left side would be the materials. All the way on the right would be the outcome. So you go ahead and take tool, material, outcome, right? So say I needed to cut a piece of wood. So you would take whatever species, wood, plywood, whatever, bring it over to here, and then you take whatever saw you need to use, bring it down here. Now, is the beauty of it all is that within understanding how the matrix worked, you can go ahead and do what he called also a paradigm shift. Paradigm shift would be that you would take a a certain tool that you could use, but it might not be, you might not be able to achieve a certain result from it, or you don't have said tool, so you have to go ahead and utilize something else to make the same outcome. I'll give another example. Another example would be one of my previous videos that I had done. Probably one of the most popular one was the Sith holocron. Now, most people, the more popular people, if you will, would use a laser cutter to get all these precise pieces cut out. If they didn't have that, they'd use a CNC router. I didn't have any of those things, so I had to go ahead and do a paradigm shift in the matrix and say, okay, what if I use a scroll saw? Don't have a scroll saw either, so I had to do another paradigm shift, and I had a coping saw, which is, again, if you go ahead and utilize the rule of the tool, a coping saw is a former iteration of what the scroll saw was. So I was able to achieve the same results by using a different tool that was a precursor towards the scroll saw, or even realistically a precursor towards even the laser cutter and CNC. So I just wanted to throw this out there for you guys, that if you are struggling with some of your projects because you don't have the latest and greatest tool, there are other methods, there are other ways to go ahead and do this. You just have to, again, know the rule of the tool, know how to go ahead and plot the matrix, and then do a paradigm shift if you need to in order to go ahead and achieve that same outcome. I hope that this little video was a help and an encouragement to you guys, especially those that struggle like me, even with making some of the props and room build stuff, because we don't have said item. There's other ways to make it work. You just have to go ahead and think a little bit outside the box, and that's the beauty of being a maker as well, is just knowing not knowing, but just figuring out how to make it work. And in that regard, you're also being a real Star Wars builder, because the guys at ILM, when they first started making Star Wars, they just used whatever they had on hand, and that's probably the best way that you and I can come up with some of these amazing creations. And again, I hope this is an encouragement to you guys, and we'll catch you on the next video.